Artemis by Andy Weir. A dream derailed. Jazz Bashara's heart raced as she stood before the EV Guild headquarters, a symbol of her lifelong ambition and her escape from a past that clung to her like the moon's persistent shadow. Born in the dust of Saudi Arabia and transplanted to the lunar soil of Artemis at the tender age of 6, Jazz had long ago traded sandstorms for meteor showers. Her father, a devout man, had brought her to the moon, seeking a fresh start for them both after her mother's passing. But Jazz, with her quick wit and quicker fingers, found the straight and narrow too constricting. She yearned for the boundless horizon beyond Artemis's domes, and the EV Guild was her gateway. As she entered the testing center, her resolve hardened. The exam ahead was the culmination of every credit scrimped, every black market deal endured in the underbelly of Aldrin. The proctor, Helen, eyed her with a mix of skepticism and intrigue. First, demonstrate your mastery of the EV suit, Helen instructed. Then survive the emergency simulation. Jazz nodded, her mind already racing through protocols and contingencies. Encased in the suit, Jazz moved with a grace that belied its bow. She was a moonchild. The low gravity was her ally. The systems check was flawless, but then the alarm blared. A suit breach, not a drill. Jazz's training took over. She isolated the leak, her hands a blur of motion. Metal fatigue in the valve assembly, Helen's voice crackled over the con. You have 2 minutes before critical failure. Jazz's mind raced. The rules were clear. Any suit malfunction required a 6-month wait to retest. But Jazz couldn't afford to wait. She patched the leak with a jury-rigged sealant from her tool kit, a trick she learned not from the Guild's manuals, but from the resourceful engineers who frequented the shadowy corners of Artemis where rules were bent for survival. The patch was a temporary fix, a bandage on a wound that needed stitches, but it held. Helen watched, her eyes betraying a hint of respect. Impressive, Bashara. You've just bought yourself enough time to get back to the airlock. Jazz exhaled, the tension in her shoulders easing as the suit's alarms silenced. She had proven her worth, but the victory was bittersweet. The Guild's regulations were as unforgiving as the lunar landscape. A malfunction meant disqualification, no matter the skill displayed in crisis. Jazz's dream of soaring above the moon's surface, untethered and free, would have to wait. Back in her cramped quarters, where the walls pressed close and the air recycled stale promises, Jazz's thoughts spiraled. The lower-class sector of Artemis was a place of unfulfilled dreams, where every breath was a reminder of the life she could have had. It was here, amid the hum of life support systems and the murmur of neighbors' quarrels, that Jazz received the anonymous message. The offer was a lifeline, a chance to claw her way out of the financial pit that threatened to bury her ambitions. It whispered of easy credits, and whispered even louder of risks. Jazz hesitated, her finger hovering over the reply button. In the silence of her room, the ghosts of her past decisions loomed, and the weight of her future pressed down upon her. With a resolve forged in the fires of desperation, Jazz tapped out her acceptance. The die was cast, setting her on a collision course with the underbelly of Artemis, where the line between right and wrong blurred like the boundary between earth and earth. Alias and ambitions. Jazz Bashara, known in the underbelly of Artemis as the elusive Nuhan Nejam, navigated the crowded corridors with a purpose that belied her casual demeanor. The alias was more than a mere pseudonym. It was a shield against the digital eyes that monitored the city's every corner, a necessary deception for the heist that could elevate her from petty smuggler to legend. As Nuha, she could move freely, unburdened by the baggage of Jazz's checkered past. At the Artemis Hyatt, where luxury and anonymity were commodities as precious as the air they breathed, she checked in with a confidence that came from months of preparation. Her plan was audacious, to infiltrate the city's most secure vault using a hull inspection bot repurposed for her clandestine needs. It would carry her along the moon's desolate exterior, bypassing security systems that were never designed to look for threats from outside the dome. Her comlink's buzz was a reminder that she wasn't alone in this endeavor. "Jazz, it's Dale. The bot's ready." Her old friend's voice was a mix of excitement and concern. "And the cameras?" she pressed, knowing that one overlooked detail could unravel everything. "They'll be blind when you need them to be." Tico's making sure of it. Dale's assurance was the balm to her fraying nerves. Tico, the hacker with a debt to pay, had been introduced to her by Victor, a member of the EVA Guild whose expertise in extravehicular activities was unparalleled. Victor's role was crucial. He would ensure their movements outside the dome went undetected, a task that required his unique skills and experience. As the days slipped by, Jazz found herself grappling with the gravity of what she was about to do. A heist wasn't just a path to wealth. It was a dance with danger that could cost her everything. The fear of failure, of being caught, gnawed at her, but it was the thrill of the challenge, the chance to prove herself, that drove her forward. Victor, with his calm demeanor and steady hands, became her anchor amidst the chaos, his presence a constant as they finalized their plans. The night of the heist, the air in the storage room was thick with tension. Victor, clad in his EVA suit, checked his equipment with meticulous care, while Tico, ever the nervous tinkerer, made last-minute adjustments to the bot. Jazz, or rather Nuha, watched them, her heart a drumbeat in her chest, her mind a whirlwind of what-ifs. "We're ready." Victor's voice was steady, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions within Jazz. With a nod, she led her team into the lunar night. The heist was more than a criminal act. It was a testament to her cunning, a declaration of her ambitions. And as they ventured into the unknown, Jazz Bashara, under the guise of Nua Neshem, was determined to seize her destiny. The Saboteur's Path. Jazz crouched behind the bulky machinery of Sanchez Aluminum's harvester, her heart pounding as she clutched the wire cutters. The distant hum of the city's life support system served as a reminder of the delicate balance she was about to disrupt. "Okay, Jazz, you can do this," she whispered to herself, reaching for the primary comm system. A spark flew as she snipped the first wire, the harvester's lights flickering before dying out. 1 down, 3 to go. As she moved to the next harvester, a subtle change in the shadows caught her eye. She tensed, sensing the presence of O Palacio's goons closing in. Quickening her pace, she disabled the second and third harvesters in quick succession. Approaching the fourth, she noticed the silhouette of a goon reflected in the metal casing. Without hesitation, she slid into a narrow gap between the harvesters, her movements silent and swift, a testament to her resourcefulness. The facility erupted into chaos as an alarm blared, a distraction courtesy of Dale. Jazz seized the moment, rushing to the final harvester. Her hands shook as she cut the last wires, plunging the harvester into darkness. She sprinted towards the exit, the facility now a labyrinth of flashing lights and shouting guards. Her knowledge of Artemis's layout gave her the edge she needed to evade her pursuers and slip away into the night. Breathless and bruised, Jazz returned to her hideout where Kelvin and Halima awaited. Kelvin's eyes met hers, a silent question hanging between them. Jazz nodded, confirming the deed with a grim smile. "It's done. But this is just the beginning. O Palacio won't take this lying down." Halima's gaze was fraught with unspoken concern as she rested a hand on her pregnant belly. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, Jazz felt the weight of their shared resolve. They were united in their cause for Artemis, ready to face the consequences of their actions, knowing full well the risks they had taken. As they gathered around the flickering screen displaying the now silent harvesters, a plan began to form. They would need to be smarter, faster, and even more daring. But for now, they had won a small victory, and in the quiet of the hideout, that was enough to keep the spark of rebellion alive. Fugitive shadows. Jazz crouched in the shadow of a storage container, her breath shallow and quick. The streets of Artemis, once a sanctuary, now a labyrinth of danger, were no place for the faint-hearted. The accusation of double homicide was a relentless shadow, but she wouldn't let it define her. The door to Kelvin's shop slid open with a hiss, and Jazz slipped inside. Kelvin's face was etched with concern. "Jazz, this is madness," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You can't keep running forever." "I don't plan to," Jazz replied, her eyes fierce with determination. "I just need to clear my name." Kelvin handed her a small device. "Your new KSC account. Use it wisely." "Thanks, Kelvin. I owe you one," Jazz said, pocketing the device. Her next stop was the visitor center, where Dale was waiting. "Dale, keep an eye out. Anything out of place, you let me know," she instructed. Dale nodded. "I've got your back, Jazz. Always." As night enveloped Artemis, Jazz stood at Svoboda's door. The Ukrainian engineer was crucial to her plan. "Svoboda, take a look at this," she said, presenting an intriguing device. Svoboda's curiosity was piqued. "Let's see what we can find out," he said, leading her to his lab. Working together, they delved into the mystery. The pieces of the puzzle were coming together, and Jazz was close to uncovering the truth. With the break-off dawn, Jazz's resolve hardened. She was more than a shadow in Artemis. She was its silent protector. The city wouldn't remember her as a fugitive, but as the one who fought from the darkness to bring light to the truth. Today she would confront her accusers, armed with evidence and the unwavering spirit of a woman wronged. Today she would reclaim her life. The assassin's snare. Jazz, hidden behind crates, evaded her pursuers from O Palacio. Contacted by Svoboda, she requested a distraction. Lights out. She rendezvoused with Sarah Gottlieb in a Rungosel, discussing her setup and a counterplan. Joined by Dale, they navigated Artemis's labyrinth. Meanwhile, Jin Chu and Alvarez plotted against Jazz, who, with her allies, trapped the assassins. Confronted by Rudy, she revealed O Palacio's scheme, thwarting their conspiracy and safeguarding Artemis, transforming from smuggler to hero. Oxygen and ethics. The air was thick with tension as Jazz and Dale approached the Smelter. The heat was a stark contrast to the cold vacuum outside the dome of Artemis. "Are you sure about this?" Dale's voice crackled over the comm, his concern palpable even through the static. "It's the only way," Jazz replied, her resolve clear. She activated the heater, hacked the thermal system, and sealed the melt plug with a steel plate. The Smelter groaned, a beast awakened as the pressure built. "Jazz, we have to go now," Dale urged. Jazz's eyes caught a figure in the distance. Sanchez, struggling with the emergency air system. The woman who had been her adversary was now vulnerable. "Jazz, she won't make it if we leave her," Dale said softly. Without a word, Jazz sprinted towards Sanchez. "Come on, we need to get out of here," she called out, extending a hand. "Why would you help me?" Sanchez asked, disbelief in her voice. "Survival isn't just about living. It's about how we live," Jazz replied, pulling her to safety. They reached the rover where Dale waited, and as they drove away, the Smelter exploded, sending a shockwave that rattled their bones. Back in Armstrong, chaos ensued. The train from the port of entry was docked, and people lay unconscious, victims of a chloroform leak, a consequence of the Smelter incident. Jazz's heart sank. This was an unintended result of her actions. "We need to fix this, Dale. We can't let Artemis suffer because of us," Jazz said, her voice a mix of determination and fear. "I'll contact Svoboda. He might have an idea on how to clean the air," Dale replied, scanning the horizon. Jazz's comm beeped. "Jazz, I heard about the explosion. The chloroform. It's my fault, isn't it?" Svoboda's anxious voice came through. No, but we need your Zapotech now more than ever, Jazz replied. Earlier, Svoboda had introduced Jazz to Zafo technology, a fiber optic innovation that allowed data transmission without loss, crucial for their current predicament. I'm on it. Meet me at the Life Support Center, Svoboda responded. They arrived to find Svoboda already at work, his device humming as it filtered the air. It's not perfect, but it'll buy us some time, he said. Jazz joined in, and together, they worked until the air began to clear. It was a temporary solution, but it was enough to wake the people on the train. You did it, Jazz, Dale said, a smile breaking through the tension. Yet Jazz knew the hardest part was yet to come, facing the consequences of her actions and making amends. The city of Artemis, her home, had been put at risk, and now she had to face the community she had endangered. The next days were a blur of meetings, apologies, and technical sessions with Svoboda and the city engineers to ensure such an incident would never happen again. Jazz's actions were under scrutiny, and the weight of potential exile hung over her. Yet in the midst of turmoil there was a silver lining. Her efforts to rectify the mistake had not gone unnoticed. The people of Artemis, who had once viewed her as a reckless smuggler, now saw her as someone who dared to do the right thing when it mattered most. It was a hard-earned respect that changed not only how others saw her, but how she saw herself. Redemption's price. Jazz Bashara's heart pounded as she stared at the chaos unfolding before her. The air was thick with tension. She knew she had to act fast. Jazz, what are we going to do? Dale's voice crackled through the calm, his tone laced with urgency. We fix this, Dale, Jazz replied, her mind racing. She donned her makeshift protective gear, a patchwork of scavenged materials and emergency supplies that somehow held together in the vacuum of space. The clock was ticking. She had less than 25 minutes to seal the breach. Jazz maneuvered towards the airlock, her hands slick with sweat as she struggled with the manual controls. Come on, she muttered, throwing her weight against the crank. With a groan, the hatch gave way and she was through. Outside, the vastness of space loomed. Jazz's gaze fell on the containment system. Dale, cut the power to the smelter. Now, she instructed. On it, Jazz, Dale responded. Loretta Sanchez, the investor who had recently backed Jazz's eBay tour company with a hefty sum, chimed in, I've got your back, Jazz. With their help, Jazz worked with frantic precision, patching the breach with an emergency sealant. As the sealant took hold, the leak slowed, then stopped. Jazz let out a sigh of relief. Back inside Artemis, Jazz faced the community, her actions under scrutiny. She had fought for redemption, and it seemed the city had granted it. The residents of Artemis, having witnessed her bravery, rallied behind her. Jazz's father approached, his eyes brimming with pride. You've done well, my daughter. As she walked through the corridors of Artemis, the residents greeted her with nods and smiles. She wasn't just a smuggler anymore. She was a vital member of their community. In the days that followed, Jazz took an active role in the city's efforts to improve safety protocols. Meetings were held, plans were drawn up, and Jazz was at the forefront sharing her experience and insights. The community had not only forgiven her, they had embraced her as one of their own. Jazz Bashara had paid the price for redemption, but in doing so, she had gained something far more valuable, her place in the heart of Artemis. Legacy of the Smuggler. Jazz Bashara, once a smuggler, now stood in the heart of Artemis, the lunar city she called home. The air buzzed with the memory of her daring acts, and she felt the weight of her newfound status as a hero. In the wake of her exploits, political changes and power struggles within the city had intensified. The air of Artemis was thick with whispers and intrigue as residents grappled with the aftermath of Jazz's actions. As Jazz navigated the bustling streets, she noticed residents gathered around a public holoscreen, their eyes glued to the latest news. They say the entire city almost shut down. One resident remarked, his voice laced with awe. It's a testament to our resilience that we're still standing. Jazz's heart swelled with pride as she realized the impact of her deeds. She had not only averted an economic disaster by dismantling the outdated contract with Palacio, but had also risked her life to save Artemis from destruction. However, Jazz was keenly aware that her past as a smuggler cast a long shadow. She caught whispered rumors and sensed suspicious glances from certain corners. Her legacy was complex, and she understood the skepticism that came with her checkered history. Despite the admiration she received, she knew her actions had attracted attention, and her influence on the city's stability was now undeniable. Approaching the city's administrator, Ngugi, Jazz took a moment to reflect on her confession, where she had implicated herself to protect her allies. "Administrator Ngugi," she called out, her voice steady. "I wanted an update on my situation, given my recent actions." Ngugi turned, his expression unreadable. "Ms. Bashara, your actions have exposed vulnerabilities within our city that demand our attention. Your role in saving Artemis has earned you a place in its history." Jazz felt a weight lift from her shoulders, but she remained cautious. "I hope my actions will be considered when deciding my future here. I want to continue serving this city and being a force for positive change." Ngugi regarded her with an intense gaze. "Your offer to take responsibility and face the consequences of your actions demonstrates your commitment to Artemis. Rest assured, your contributions have not gone unnoticed." A small smile played on Jazz's lips. "I'm glad to hear that, Administrator. My journey from smuggler to someone invested in the future of Artemis has taught me the importance of accountability and community. I want to help shape a better future for us all." Ngugi nodded, his expression softening. "Your transformation, Ms. Bashara, serves as a powerful example of redemption. Artemis needs individuals like you who are willing to put the greater good above personal gain." As Jazz continued her walk through the city, she felt a surge of emotion. Her actions had not only saved Artemis, but also carved out a future for herself as a pivotal figure in the lunar society. The legacy of the smuggler would forever be intertwined with the city's destiny, and the lessons she had learned would guide her path forward. The residents of Artemis would come to know Jazz Bashara as the courageous, flawed, and redeemed hero who had shaped their lunar home. Little did they know that her story was far from over, and her influence would continue to shape the city's future in ways they couldn't yet imagine.